Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Coaches Preview Show. I'm Jeremy Qualls here with Coach Wes May, the head coach of the Lady Panthers at Page Middle School, the WMAA 2018 champions. Not only that, undefeated 25-0. The JV team did not lose in the county, as well as the sixth grade team went 13-1. That's a pretty successful season, Coach.
Yes, sir. It was. The coaches that staff helps us is very well rounded, and we help each other throughout.
Well, why don't you tell us about that? This is the first time in your show. We're just going to talk basketball. It's just me and you. Talk basketball. Let's talk about your coaching staff. Let's start there first. Who all helps you?
My assistant is Renee Osborne. He's coached college before and moved here. Coach Tawny Browning is my sixth grade coach. She's coached varsity as well, but has now moved to our sixth grade and helps us very well with the skills for our girls coming up in JV and varsity.
So let's talk about it. It's a little bit different. You know, predominantly this show is a high school show, but when we get down into the weeds, we get down into the middle school, what is the most important part? Is it necessarily the strategies, the X's and O's, or is it building upon those fundamentals?
It's fundamentals. We work on dribbling, passing, fundamentals every day, because if you can't do that, then you're obviously not going to win a basketball game. But we do emphasize winning, but not as much as at our sixth and JV bunch as we do with our varsity. But definitely the fundamentals are all constantly pushed. Well,
since this is your first time on the show, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've been, where were you before Page, your coaching duties, whether it's basketball and other things. Just give everybody a snapshot of what you're doing.
Wes May, this is my 23rd year coaching. I started out in Northwest Tennessee, and then
what part?
Union City.
Union City, Cyclones. Oh yeah, Tornadoes.
Tornadoes.
Excuse me. All right.
I played for Obion County Central. Jimmy Whitby.
I think you say Cannon and those guys.
I was a sophomore when Cannon played as a senior.
Coach Whitby, this is a small world. Coach Whitby, when I was head coach at Lexington High School, Coach Whitby was at Lake County. He had a loaded team. Mm-hmm. They were great. Great guy. I don't know where his health is currently. I know that
he's got Parkinson's really bad.
Great guy.
Yes.
But Coach Whitby, one of the all-time winningest coaches in NCAA history. Cannon has all the records. There used to be all the records. Anyways. Yep. Small world. Sorry, go ahead.
I played there, and then I coached at Obion County at Hillcrest. Actually, Matt Harris was our ball boy when I played.
How about that? That's funny.
But he played for another middle school. But I coached there for 12, 13 years. Then I moved up to the high school and was the JV and freshman coach and assistant varsity. So, and then I left there and went to Columbia Academy girls.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. What years were you at Columbia Academy?
2002 to 2003 or 4.
Any girls come to that program that we could remember?
No. I had 2 that scored 1,000 points in 3 years, but nothing that they didn't go on and play.
Matt Harris will be good to know that he got a shout out today on the show. Inadvertently at that, true shout out. Matt is a longtime partner and sponsor of the WCS Sports Conference and down at Berry Farms Chiropractic, and he is letting me know this week, being March Madness, that Murray State did win and Austin Peay did not. So I don't like to hear that. But coach basketball, that's all your duties are at Page, or do you got some other duties?
No, I've coached the girls basketball, I've coached the baseball, but I've switched now and I do softball.
Okay.
And I coach boys and girls golf.
Well, a little jack of all trades. Let me ask you a question. This is a question I like to ask that's been on both sides. You've coached boys sports, you've coached girls sports. What to you is the easiest?
I like coaching girls. Boys tend to say, I know too much. Don't tell me how to do this. Girls, I can honestly say they would run through a wall for me if I asked them to do it. They play so much harder and more passionate at times. But then you do have other things, drama and stuff you deal with. But
Well, you know, I ask that question pretty much anybody that I come across that's done both or made the switch to one to the other. And everybody has given me the same response is coaching girls. I cannot imagine myself ever coaching girls, but you know, everybody that I've talked to says it's so much easier. You know, Coach Wild at Franklin, right? He had, you know, he was at, you know, had the boys team back in the day and flipped to make girls, and he's like, look, it's so much easier. You know, it's a chess match. Miles Thrash, same way at Brentwood. He's like a chess match. He said it doesn't come down to who's got the best athlete. It's more of a strategic chess match. So it's interesting take on that. The road to the championship, 6th grade champions, like I mentioned, JV champions, varsity champions. I need to check the record books if this has ever happened before.
I don't know. Me and Coach Pack were talking about that, and we thought that it had never happened, but who knows? I don't know that for a fact.
So let's talk about the road to the championship game. You did defeat Grassland and Paul Brees, a household name here at WCTV. Couldn't happen to a better guy, right? Paul Brees. Coach Brees does a great job. Let's talk about that road to the championship. Give us a snapshot throughout the year. You know, first year, were the games close? You know, as the year progressed, did you start finding your stride and beating people pretty easy, or how'd that go?
It started out, we started out at Overbrook tournament. We won that, and then we just kept rolling. We went to Chapel Hill to the World Tournament, and we won that. We really didn't see any competition. We were beating people 30 points. And so the championship game was the hardest game and closest. 24 of the 25 wins were double-digit wins.
Wow.
And so
dominant force.
Those girls were
And I think the championship game we were talking off there, I think 6-7 points was the difference in that game. Coach Brees had a masterful game plan, just fell a little short of the Lady Panthers of Page Middle. But well, let's talk about some of your personnel, your players that you have. Were you majority all 8th graders, or did you have some underclassmen that played, you know, heavily in that rotation?
We had 7 8th graders, and then I added 3 7th graders later in the season. But majority of them were 8th grade. Mackenzie Cochran, which will go on and play high school and make a big impact. Lily Wilkin will do exactly the same thing.
Would that happen to be the younger sister of Faith Wilkin?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And I had the pleasure of coaching Faith when she was in 8th grade. So, but Abigail Ward, she's my long shooter. She shoot 2-3 feet behind the 3-point line. And that's what helped us this year, was that we had so many that could shoot 3 that if you guarded one, the other 2 would pick it up. And but Mackenzie Cochran is a dual threat. If you get on her, she's going to penetrate. If you stay off of her, she's going to shoot. So, but I had two 7th graders that made a big impact and really sparked us in that championship game. Was Lauren Johnson. She came on and gave us. We were dragging defensively, and she sparked us, got us a couple steals early. So, but mainly 8th graders, but those 7th graders helped us too.
Well, tell us a little about your playing style. You mentioned this. It's always fun to have teams that can shoot, and if you got teams that can shoot and drive, it's real fun. I'm assuming that you're looking at a 4-out, 1-in style, maybe a 5-out. What would you like to run?
We ran a 5-out motion, but in my experience coaching girls, if you've got to know how to press.
Sure.
We got most of our points came off of the front end of the press because I love full court in your face pressing.
Me too.
Did
you run a man press or a zone press?
I ran a 1-2-1-1 and switched it up to
the old diamond.
Yeah, diamond's what I call it.
And it's tough. It's
it
really
is
tough. I mean, you're looking at those trapping lanes, and once you get them trapped back court and they get a little bit nervous, we like to say back in the day, we want to make them throw hand grenades.
Throw it.
And when they throw those hand grenades, we're going to pick them off.
I love putting back in the back. I called it the wild woman because she watches
the roamer.
And
shoots,
and shoots.
That's usually the best athlete too.
Yep.
Most people get confused and think, well, you got your fastest person on the point of that. No. That back side of that diamond, if you can envision a diamond, the back side, the bottom point, it's got to be that person that can read and anticipate those passes.
And that is the big key for girls basketball, I think. If you don't press, it's tough.
And so you press, you rode that wave pretty much all year long. So let's talk about your JV. Do you start implementing that press in the JV so they can
Yes.
see it, know it, and work on it as well?
We run almost the exact same offense and defense with JV and with the 6th grade. I give them more leeway. You know, I want this basic stuff done, but you have your own. It's your own team. You run it too the way you want to do it.
Right.
But yes, we try to run the same exact principles of defense and offense.
So the unique situation at Page is the fact that you almost, let's just say 90%, have a complete feeder program. So you go 6th, 7th, 8th. 8th goes on to high school. Now there is a small sliver of those students that will feed into Centennial High School. I think we mentioned that earlier. You have a player that's your 7th, 8th graders going on. 7 of the 8 will be Page High School,
Right.
correct?
And then I have one, Samantha Lynn, that will be going to Centennial.
And so I guess with that thought process is Coach Ron Brock at the high school. You know he's sitting over there watching you. You know he loves to see what's happening with the fact that you swept all 3.
Yes.
You know, how much involvement is he and vice versa with you with him?
We talk, we text back and forth. He comes over. He came to probably 6 or 7 of our basketball games. But we talk in the summers and stuff and try to do stuff. And I try to help him as much as possible, ask him what he wants to do and that kind of stuff. And I try to implement it into my system as well, just to help him out.
How important is that? I think is that not people have a hard time when you're coaching and you've got separate buildings, separate entities, even though it may be, you know, in our county we have a unique situation. We only have a handful. If I can think of Fairview, y'all are at 90%, Mill Creek's at 100% going into Noblesville. So we have 3 out of the 12 middle schools that have natural feeder programs. How important is that, man?
I think it's very important. You almost have to work hand in hand to give a basis for them, and they play together in the cohesiveness of them playing at the middle school and then all as a whole moving to the high school. I think it's a big help.
And the funny thing is that you look at Page Middle. Page Middle, if I'm not mistaken, is either the 1st or 2nd largest middle school in the WMAA, and then you get up to the Page High School, which is the smallest of the Big 6 on that AAA/5A football side.
Right.
So when they come in, you know, Page is now a part of, which they weren't before this year, part of that AAA basketball, baseball, softball group. And you know what? A lot of people really thought at the high school level that Coach Noe and Coach Brock, you know, those programs would struggle. Well, they were right in the thick of it. You know, they're in the middle of the entire group. There's a 9-team group there, and with Spring Hill on the back end, Spring Hill and Page being the new 2 coming in, and Page girls finished right in the middle of the mix. You know, and that's pretty good from going from, you know how tough it is to go from AA ball to AAA ball, specifically with the teams that we had this year, with Franklin winning 27 games and Brentwood going to the sub-state and Ravenwood making a state tournament run, you know. So I mean,
it's big, yeah, and I think a lot of it is the cohesiveness of them playing together and going all together and understanding each other.
So the way this is going to work is this 8th grade group's going to go to the freshman. So I'm assuming that the freshman group next year at Page High School on the girls' side will win the freshman tournament. So that means the JV moves up to varsity. So I'm assuming the varsity will be varsity champions again, right? And the 6th grade going to JV and so forth. So what's on the radar for the 6th grade team? Give me a little snapshot on that. We have some potential.
Yes, they are.
That was pretty quick. You are excited about it.
I am very excited. The 6th grade bunch is a very, very well talented team. They're fundamentally sound, and Coach Browning really works on the fundamentals. So I'm not having no reservations with them coming up and playing JV and doing well.
So just people at home, pay attention to the Page feeder program out there. Pay attention to Page High School. Coach Brock will not be successful without your success, and we appreciate that. And a lot of times that gets overlooked, but the important thing is people like you, Coach May, in these positions, doing the right things, teaching the fundamentals so they can be successful at the high school. You're officially off the hot seat, and I greatly appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your championship,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next year in this the same exact role because you're going to win it for the next 3 years.
I hope so.
Coming up next, we'll be visiting with Keith Holzer, Spring Station Boys WMAA champion. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Coach's Preview Show. We're now joined by Keith Holzer, Athletic Director, Head Boys Coach at the Spring Station Mustangs, undefeated Spring Station Mustangs, 21-0, WMAA Boys Champions. And your team looked awfully impressive, Coach Holzer. Now, people are going to say, do you have a good basketball team or are you a good coach? Or is it a combination of both, my friend?
I would definitely say a good basketball team.
You do have a good basketball team.
Yeah.
You did a good job. Hey, look, see, people don't understand. You got to harness that power, man.
Yeah.
Not just anybody can go out there and do that. But you did have a very impressive basketball team this year.
Yeah, well, we built it up over the last couple of years anyways and stuff. There was a couple key contributors there that as a sixth graders coming in needed a lot of work, and by 8th grade they looked very impressive, shooting, driving, rebounding, playing defense stuff. So, but it was just pretty much putting them in the correct system, and I had a couple of really good athletes that when I put them into my pressing system, I run the diamond press, they really took off with it.
We were just talking about that before in the earlier segment with Coach May. He runs the same, the 1-2-1-1 diamond press, and if you got your athletes out there, man, you can put them on the points at the half court point, and the front point, or anywhere in between, and make it work. Let's talk real quick before we get into personnel. Let's talk about your coaching staff. Who, first off, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? You're not from Tennessee, obvious, with your non-Southern dialect, right?
Yeah, I came from South Dakota. I grew up in a little small town called Trail City, South Dakota. Went to high school in Timberlake, South Dakota, and then I was teaching in Rapid City right before my wife, who is Amber Holzer, used to coach volleyball at Franklin High School. Kind of forced me to move down here. So.
Yeah, is she originally from here?
No, she's originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but she has family in Chattanooga.
Now, explain to me, you've told me this story before, I forget. How did y'all meet?
We were both coaching at Rapid City Central.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
And then y'all moved back this
Yeah,
way.
I was coaching basketball and she was coaching
Gotcha.
volleyball.
You have how many children?
We have 2 children.
2 children?
I have a 15-year-old daughter in South Dakota yet, and then I have a 3.5-year-old
So
boy.
you've got one the same as
Yep.
mine, yep.
Yep.
And keeps you youthful, correct?
Yes.
Chasing it. What about your coaching staff? Who's helps you?
Philip Edwards took over our 6th grade program this past year, and then Ross Stevenson has been my assistant coach for 3 years now with the boys basketball program.
So, Keith, you wear numerous hats. You're the athletic director as well. You coach numerous sports. Let's talk about Spring Station sports right now. Let's start with the fall. Darnell Spann, longtime football coach at Spring Station. I think they were the WMAA champions this year. Talk about some of the sports and what all's going on in Spring Station right now.
Well, it's just pretty much we're just trying to build up the programs throughout throughout all of our sports. We usually have a really strong spring program with baseball and softball coming through Spring Hill there, but football's been picking it up the last couple of years. Basketball's been picking up the last couple of years, and Jenny Stevenson is taking over volleyball now, hoping we can change that program around in volleyball.
And she's also the softball coach, correct?
She is now at Summit.
At Summit High School.
Yes.
So
yeah, she was when they won, I think, 3 or 4 in a row at Spring Station.
We were talking about Coach West May. You've got an interesting situation at Spring Station that not everybody is privy to in the WMAA. You've got a natural full feeder going into Summit High School right now. Will any of your kids get zoned to Thompson Station?
Yes, I think we're going to lose about 100 of them.
Right, so you're going to have a piece of that. Piece of those kids will be moving, leaving, and going to Independence.
Yes.
But the remainder will all go to Summit High School.
Back to Summit, yeah.
So, you've got an interesting situation. You've got a couple people on your staff, Jenny being one of those.
Yep.
Peter Miller being the other one as your wrestling program.
Yep.
Now, Pete, he's done a great job with the wrestling
Yes.
program down there at Spring Station, right?
Oh, yeah, they've been pretty dominant the last 4 years.
And also at Summit High School, and that translates.
Yes.
So my point being, going into what you've done basketball-wise, you can see that with this particular group, I guess you can see if you're looking in a crystal ball into the future of what they're going to be like on the high school level.
Yeah, and if you think back even to last year's team we lost 3 games all season. And then this year's team, we went undefeated. So there's 2 really good programs coming up here that are freshmen this year and then can be freshmen next year.
How many of your kids play multiple sports?
I'll be honest, we probably have about 70%, I'm going to say, yeah, that are playing probably more with the boys' side. Even for basketball this last year, out of our basketball team, I actually was able to talk in about 7 of them to actually playing or going out for track this year. So our track team is actually, our boys' side is looking pretty tough this upcoming year because we've gotten a lot of them to come out, where previous years they didn't ever come out because they went on to play AU basketball right away and stuff.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about your team, man. Let's talk about the road to the championship. Who'd you play in the championship game?
In the championship game, we played Sunset, and it was actually the 4th time this year we played them.
Sunset not upset somebody to get into that game?
They upset Brentwood,
right.
Yes.
And where was Grassland in this group? Because they were pretty good as well.
We beat Grassland to make it in.
That's right, and that's the game that I saw. And so you rode to the championship there, and you won pretty significantly all the way through. What was the championship game?
Well, we won the first game. We won by 40-some. The second game, it ended up being a closer game. I think it was like 5 points. And then the championship game, we won by, I think, 30, 35, somewhere in there. But it was, I kind of had some plans for defense saved up. The extended 2-3 zone all the way out to half court. We had been practicing it up and saving it. And I was kind of saving it because before, like I said, Sunset upset Brentwood. We were kind of saving it for Brentwood, and I didn't want to show it too early because every single game, every coach was sitting behind our bench scouting us. So I didn't want to show it too early and stuff, and I almost had to show it on that Wednesday night, but I held off because I figured they were going to have to start following us because we were leading, and we have a pretty good free throw shooting team. So
then you brought it out for the championship game.
So I brought out second half.
Idea it was coming.
Yeah, I brought out second half the championship game.
Did you trap out of that?
Huh?
Did you trap out of that on the
Yeah,
sides?
we were getting them out right when they crossed half court. We were coming after them. And Sunset, it's being the 4th time we played Sunset, so it kind of worked out good. They weren't waiting until after halftime, so they couldn't make any adjustments on it. And that's when we think we had a 8 or 9 point lead at halftime, and then when we brought that out, that's when it separated up to, it was like 28, 30 points then after that.
Most of those all come off transition buckets.
Yes, yeah.
Throwing hand grenades. That's what we're talking about, Wes. They get them in a trap, and they throw hand grenades, and it's off the races. So let's talk about your players, man. You had the opportunity to see Spring Station, and I'm sure the championship game will be playing either before or after this show. But you see these kids. These kids. You had 3 kids in particular, to me, that have high school bodies and high school abilities already. I mean, these guys are really, really good athletes. So let's talk about your team.
Well, I guess I'd say 2 of them have high school bodies. With a third one, I think you're probably talking about is our 6'4" Matt Montana.
Right.
He's the one that we really have developed since 6th grade because when he first come in, doesn't have very fast foot speed or anything like that, and he was a decent shooter, but never would rebound or drive. And by the end of the season, I don't know if you saw it when you came to watch games, he's an excellent shooter.
He can shoot it.
So the thing is, people come running out at him. So what we've did is we've taught him to drive to the hole constantly and take it in strong. And I even had to sit him for a couple games earlier in the season because he wouldn't rebound. He wanted to hang out that 3-point line, and by the end of the season, he was probably averaging 10 rebounds a game. And then 2 of the other boys we have are the twin brothers, Keaton and Destin Way. They're both very athletic kids. They will transition excellent into high school. Could work a little bit more on their shooting forms, but we just had to get them to realize.
You didn't have to shoot it too much, man. You were shooting layups the whole time.
Well, one of the things is that we really worked with, especially Keaton and Destin, on anticipation in defense of being run out of that diamond press and then getting out of our man-to-man where we were switching everything on everybody, constantly coming up and high hedging them. The thing was when they both came to me, neither one of them ever played post player before. And so I had to really take Keaton Wade and develop him as a post player underneath and work with him on that, where at the same time, Destin, we just worked on him on anticipating and driving to the basket most of the time. So
all 3 of those guys started?
Yep.
All 3 8th graders?
Yep.
What about your other 2 positions?
The other one is Connor Kasich. He moved in from Grace Christian this past year. He was actually, I coached his older brother, and then they went to Grace for 2 years, and he just came back.
What grade is he in?
He's an 8th grader too.
Oh, okay.
Yep. They were all 8th graders, except for one, Jace Kirby on there was my only 7th grader on our squad. Excellent ball handler. Great job at being able to anticipate. Excellent passer. He just also needs to work on his shooting form a little bit, and that's what we tended to do I'd say about the final 2 months of the season. I gave him about 10 minutes of practice, and we just shot 3-pointers. Because I figured eventually everybody was going to do is try to pile in on us.
Sure.
We had to be able to shoot it from the outside to get everybody to open back up, and it really benefited us down the stretch.
Well, I know that with 4 of the starting, or your main guys being 8th graders and moving on to Summit High School, Coach Goodwin's got to be sitting there looking at these guys thinking straight away these guys will be some type of integral part in their program. And we know we look at that, and how many of those kids can make that jump? You were there, you coached against Freedom High School. I like to use this reference. Freedom High School, Trey Carlton.
Yeah.
That guy's an impact player. It was obvious in middle school, and now look at him as a sophomore, 2-year starter, big-time part player of Centennial. You look at Harry Lackey, Brentwood Middle, same age group, starting at Brentwood High School 2 years. Do you foresee these kids being that same impact player for Coach Goodwin at Summit High School?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I really think that the Twins definitely can move into that start. They already have the bodies to move into high school.
Definitely.
Matt Montana, I feel that he really has the desire. He's willing to work, put in the effort outside of practice. That I think it might take him a year for his body to develop a little bit more. He's kind of a tall toothpick right now, but within a year or so, his shooting alone is going to get him into that game.
Exactly.
And then Connor has a nice body for being a little point guard, sees the floor really well, so that'll help him. And then Brady Pierce and Austin Kincaid have really stepped it up a lot on defense and offense this last year, especially shooting from the 3-point range. That's kind of helped us out. So if they all keep working on it, they're no problem's going to be eventually getting into the starting lineups at Summit. But I would think those 3 mainly, probably in the next year, if not 2 years, will probably definitely be starters.
So what's on the horizon for the Mustangs coming up? You got JV coming up, 6th grade graduating up, and then you've got this group coming in, obviously 5th graders, rising 6th graders. What's on the horizon for the Mustangs?
Well, this past year we struggled a little bit on JV, hoping we get all that changed around this summer, working with everybody and bring them in for next year. Really got to get them to focus more on defense. They tended to be a lot more individual play and wanted to play offense, didn't want to put in the effort on defense. And as you know, watching us play, that's what I play. I play defense. So
who wants to play defense,
yeah,
though, right?
Yeah, who wants to do the hard work stuff anymore?
Until you're beating people 30, then all of a sudden everybody wants to play, right?
And 6th grade, we're gonna be losing some because of the middle school split into Thompson Station. I think we might possibly be losing 3 of the 6th grade starters. So that's gonna we have to pretty much wait to see who gets to stay in our school and who leaves, and then start to develop them there from there next year. So.
Well, Keith Holzer, Coach Holzer, you're officially off the hot seat, my friend.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
You.
We'll see if you make it here next year for the WMAA championships.
Hoping so.
Congrats on your championship, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us for Coach's Preview Show. We'll see you next time.
Rain Again by Gail Bunton Haddock. It's green again now that the rain has come back. I've been out in it. My feet are wet and getting cold, but no matter. The land was parched, the leaves brittle dry with fire and ever-present threat. With the rain has come a hush. It has settled on the far hills and across the fields. We were ready for the relief of this rain. Sometimes slow and soft, sometimes hard and slanting on a rush of wind, and then a quietness that heals the brutality of a too long drought.